There are football matches. And then there are nights like this. Nights that leave you pacing around your living room, hands on your head, laughing in disbelief, or shouting at a television screen that can't possibly comprehend what it just showed you. How do you begin to make sense of it? Manchester United were gone. Twice. Out of the Europa League, out of the competition, out of ideas, out of belief. And then they weren't. They came back. Not once. Twice. And not just came back. They clawed, screamed, bled, rose like Lazarus, and won. 5-4 on the night. 7-6 on aggregate. It's not a match. It's a myth, a memory already melting into legend before the full-time whistle had even faded. Let's rewind to the moment where everything felt settled. Lyon had just gone 4-2 up in extra time. Alexandre Lacazette slotted home a penalty, sending Onana the wrong way and Lyon into what looked like a dream finish. United were down 2. Again. The season, the whole season, hanging by the thinnest of threads. Old Trafford was hushed. Ghosts in the crowd. The same stunned silence that's hung over that ground far too many times lately. And then, something in the air shifted. Casemiro, who by this point had already been through every stage of footballing life in this one game, had battled, failed, and kept battling, went down in the box. The referee said no. The crowd groaned, but then came the screen. The dreaded or blessed video assistant referee screen. The referee jogs over, has a look, points to the spot. Penalty. United not dead yet. Bruno Fernandes. Cold veins rolls it into the bottom right corner like he was doing this in a park somewhere on a Sunday. 4-3. 6-5 on aggregate. Hope. Just a sliver. But oh, did it grow, and then, just when you thought the match had peaked, that the final twist had already played out, Mainu, the kid, the moment. A pass from Casemiro again, Mainu controls, takes a breath, strikes, bottom corner, 4-4, 6-6. At this point, it's not football. It's theater. It's chaos with the soundtrack of a screaming crowd and the trembling commentary of a broadcaster losing their voice. And finally, the dagger, the killer blow. The cherry on top of a match that defies logic. Casemiro again, this time floating a desperate cross toward the back post. And who is there? Harry Maguire. Of course it's Harry Maguire. The much maligned, the scapegoated, the banished and recalled. He peels off his man and plants a header into the far corner. 5-4. 7-6. Delirium. You don't just watch matches like this. You survive them. And if you're a Manchester United fan, you might not sleep for a week. And if you're a Lyon fan, you might not forget this heartbreak for a decade. Because the cruelest thing wasn't just losing. It was the feeling that they had it. Twice. What's football if not a cruel magician? You see the trick, you know the setup, but when the rabbit comes out of the hat, it still gets you every time. This wasn't a comeback. It was a resurrection. The kind of night that reminds you why football makes absolutely no sense, and why that's the whole point. It wasn't clean. It wasn't controlled. It was messy and ridiculous and completely unforgettable. This wasn't just a game. It was an exorcism. A defibrillator shock to a flatlining season. And when that final whistle went, Old Trafford didn't cheer. It roared. The kind of roar that comes from the gut, not the mouth. A sound you don't plan. A sound that happens to you. United aren't supposed to win games like this anymore. They're supposed to fall apart. They're supposed to collapse under the weight of their own history. But not tonight. Not this time. Because tonight, football reminded us, sometimes the heart beats louder than the odds. Let's try to piece together the anatomy of this madness. The first half, that was control. That was clarity. That was the blueprint. Manchester United came out like a team that knew what was at stake. No confusion, no hesitation, just pace, precision, purpose. 10 minutes in, they had what they needed. Ugarte, a name not often whispered in headlines, opened the scoring with a clean finish after Garnacho carved open Lyon's defense like a hot knife through soft butter. 1-0 on the night, 3-2 on aggregate. A calm roar rippled through Old Trafford. Not a cheer, a nod. Yes, that's the start we needed. The midfield trio of Casemiro, Ugarte, and Fernandes hummed like a well-oiled engine. Diogo Dalot, of all people, made it 2 just before the break, dashing in behind, shrugging off Tagliafico and burying it across goal. 2-0, 4-2. At that point, it looked like Lyon were the ones searching for belief, not the ball. United's first half was measured, tidy, even elegant in moments. And crucially, it had a purpose. The second half, that was something else entirely. It began with whispers, chances, little warning signs, and then the storm. Tolisso popped up with a poacher's header to make it 2-1, and just like that, United's clean grip turned slippery. Old Trafford exhaled uneasily. And then the flood came. Tagliafico. Yes, that Tagliafico who had looked shaky for most of the match smashed home after a pinball passage in the box. 2-2 on the night, 4-4 on aggregate. Suddenly it was their turn. Lyon had belief now, and belief is the most dangerous player on the pitch. And to make matters worse, Tolisso sees red. You'd think that would swing the pendulum, right? United up a man, level on aggregate, home crowd behind them. But the game had lost its script by then. Momentum laughed at logic. And United somehow were still the ones on the back foot. Extra time. That cursed, beautiful stretch of football where time distorts and hearts race ahead of feet. 15 minutes more. And Cherki, dancing like he was born with the ball tied to his ankle, rifled Lyon into the lead. 3-2, 5-4 on aggregate. Silence, pure silence. Not even boos, just that eerie, shared confusion. How? It got worse. Lacazette, calm as moonlight, slotted a penalty that made it 4-2, 6-4 overall. That should have been it. It felt like it. Lyon were celebrating. Lyon were already in the semi-finals in their minds, and United looked like every version of themselves we've seen in recent years. Passive, out of energy, drowning in their own shadows. But what followed was not tactical, not rehearsed, not part of any game plan drawn on a whiteboard in a locker room. Casemiro drew a foul. The referee missed it, then checked again. The monitor came out, and just like that, lifeline. Bruno Fernandes stepped up, as he always does, and converted. 4-3, 6-5, too little too late. You thought so, but United had found breath, dangerous breath. Then came the heartbeat. Casemiro again, threading the needle to Mainu. The kid took a touch like he'd done this 1,000 times in his dreams, then slotted it in the corner like a cold-blooded killer. 4-4, 6-6, bedlam. But the madness wasn't done. No, the gods of football wanted one more moment. Casemiro, again, floated a desperate cross into the night sky. And who rose like a phoenix? Not a striker at all. Harry Maguire. The redemption arc nobody asked for, nobody saw coming. But oh, was it loud. Bang, header, far corner, 5-4, 7-6, final act, from method to madness, from calm to chaos. This game didn't just swing, it swirled, it pulled you under, then spat you back out, breathless, grinning, confused. United went from cruise control to cardiac arrest and somehow walked out alive. Lyon? They played their hearts out. And in many ways, they were brilliant. But sometimes, football isn't fair. Sometimes it's poetry, and sometimes it's a punch in the gut. This extra time didn't just end the match. It etched it into the kind of folklore people will talk about for years. The kind of game you'll tell your grandkids about, not just because of the scoreline, but because of how it made you feel. Despair, hope, elation, relief, shock. It had everything. United will move on. Lyon will move on too, but slower, heavier. This one will sting. But football marches on because it lives for nights like these. Let's talk about both teams, not just what they did, but what they meant to this game. Because this wasn't just a contest between red shirts and white ones. This was an emotional seesaw between belief and heartbreak, between survival and glory. And both Manchester United and Lyon walked onto that pitch carrying heavy, invisible luggage. History, expectation, fear. Let's start with Lyon. There's something beautifully reckless about the way they played. Lyon were not just here to participate, they were here to cause problems. Even when they went 2-0 down, even with the odds stacked against them, they didn't shrink. They swung. And when they connected, it hurt. Tolisso's goal? That was muscle memory. That was a footballer who's been to war, who's played in the biggest games, saying, "We're not done." Tagliafico's equalizer? That wasn't elegance, it was chaos. But it was the chaos of belief. Of a team that knew they weren't supposed to roll over and let United stroll into the semifinals. They may have lacked control at times, but they never lacked courage. And when it went into extra time, Lyon looked like the team with the plan. Cherki's goal was a moment of art in a match full of noise. A brushstroke in a world of hammer blows. Then Lacazette, stepping up to the spot with a heart rate that must have been below resting, converted the penalty like he was picking up groceries. Ice. That made it 4-2 on the night, 6-4 on aggregate, and for 5 minutes, maybe 10, you believed. We all did. But football is cruel. Football is the kind of story that pulls you in with promise and then tears the last page out. Lyon gave everything. 10 men backs to the wall, defending like their lives depended on it. And then one mistake. One decision, one swing too many. Suddenly, Casemiro is down. Fernandez scores, and the rest you already know. But let's not forget what Lyon gave us. They didn't just make this a match. They made it a night. They didn't just ask questions of Manchester United. They dragged answers out of them. Lyon were the storm that tested the ship. And though they're gone now, they leave with heads high. This wasn't a failure. This was a heartbreak, disguised as bravery. Now united. What do you say about a team that should have folded twice, but didn't? This is a side that has lived through dysfunction, that has taken its fans to the brink and back more times than they can count. And yet, somehow, they found another gear. Not through brilliance, not through a perfect game plan, through will, through pain, through that strange, indescribable force that football taps into when the world thinks you're finished. The first half was neat, professional, almost too calm. But once Lyon struck back, the match became an examination of character, a microscope over every weakness. And in that chaos, United found something they've lacked all season: resilience. Casemiro was at the heart of it all, sometimes calm, sometimes frantic, but always in it. Fernandez played like a man possessed, demanding the ball, taking risks, dragging teammates through the mud. Dalot, Garnacho, Maguire, each had their moment in the fire. And even when they went 4-2 down, with the crowd gasping, with Lyon dancing, United didn't vanish. They stayed in the room, stayed in the fight. The substitutions didn't always make sense. The shape wobbled, the defense panicked, but the belief, that spark, refused to go out. Mainoo's goal wasn't just the equalizer. It was a rallying cry. And Maguire's? That was defiance. That was redemption. That was narrative intervention of the highest order. So here's the truth. This wasn't a game decided by tactics. Not in the end. This was a game decided by emotions. By two teams who both refused to surrender. Lyon pushed United to their limits, and United, somehow, kept finding one more inch. Two teams, one broken-hearted, one euphoric, but both deserving of respect. Because football, at its core, is about the fight, the way you show up when everything falls apart. And both Lyon and Manchester United showed up in ways that will be remembered, long after the scoreline fades from memory. Now let's talk faces. Names. The players who didn't just play this game, but shaped it. Because when the dust settles on a night like this, we don't remember formations or set-piece routines. We remember people, moments, the weight of a pass, the sting of a shot, the look in someone's eyes as the crowd roared or fell silent. We start with Casemiro. You don't walk away from this match without talking about him. This wasn't a perfect performance. Far from it. He had passes go astray. He looked off the pace at times. But none of that mattered in the end, because when United were sinking, Casemiro threw himself into the storm. The penalty he earned wasn't just contact in the box. It was pure, calculated chaos. His cross for the winner wasn't measured perfection. It was desperation wrapped in hope. 2 assists in 2 minutes, in extra time. You don't write that. You feel it. Then there's Bruno Fernandes. And honestly, what else is new? He didn't just lead United, he dragged them forward. From the first whistle to the 126th minute, he never stopped moving, never stopped asking, never stopped trying. There were shots from impossible angles, crosses that asked questions Lyon couldn't always answer, a penalty that he made look like a Sunday stroll. There's something wild in the way he plays, something unpredictable, risky, but on nights like this, that chaos becomes leadership. He was everywhere, the conductor of the madness. And then, Mainoo. The kid. You're 20 years old? You've just come on in extra time. Your team is clinging to hope by the fingernails, and the ball drops to you in the box. Touch. Set. Finish. Bottom corner. No hesitation. What does that take? Nerves of steel? Ice in your veins? Or just the kind of instinct you can't teach? Call it what you want. He had it. Mainoo didn't just score. He injected belief into a stadium that was flatlining. That goal didn't tie the match. It lit the fuse. And then there's the man who scored the winner, Harry Maguire. You could hear the internet, could hear the doubts, the mocking tones, the sighs. And yet there he was, towering, rising, delivering the kind of header you dream about in the quiet before sleep. It wasn't just a goal. It was vindication. It was a moment that shut everyone up and reminded them, football is about moments, and Maguire just had one of the biggest of his career. On the other side, Ryan Cherky deserves his flowers. His goal? Slick, low, cold. It was a painter's finish in a butcher's game. He ghosted through United's midfield like gravity didn't apply to him, and for 20 minutes he looked like the best player on the pitch. Lacazette, too. Calmness personified. Veteran instincts, unfazed execution. That penalty was precise, measured, surgical. He knew what it meant and buried it anyway. Tagliafico had a game of two lives, burned by Dalot early on, then rising from the ashes to get his side level. Sloppy at times, yes, but his finish was the spark that made the second half combust. Gave everything, scored one, got sent off. A perfect summary of this Lyon team. Full tilt, hard on sleeve, no breaks. Let's not forget Onana. He saved United more than once in the first half. And yes, he conceded 4, but when the game was balanced, he stood firm. Dalot got a goal and never stopped running. Garnacho was electric early on, faded late, but his assist for Ugarte's opener set the whole machine in motion. Ugarte, in fact, deserves more credit. He was the forgotten soldier, tireless, positionally smart, opening the scoring and then vanishing into the shadows while others danced under the spotlight. That's football. Not everyone gets fireworks. And that's what makes a night like this so beautiful. You get the stars, you get the unsung, you get the redemption arcs, the heartbreaks, the flash-in-the-pan brilliance, and the long-burning resolve. You get people. Messy, glorious people. Every player who stepped on that pitch, whether they soared or stumbled, added to this night. The story doesn't work without all of them. Without the mistakes, the fouls, the offside runs, the misplaced passes. It all matters. It all adds up. Because football isn't just about goals. It's about the people who chase them. The ones who try, who fail, who try again. The ones who collapse in joy and the ones who fall in despair. And on this night, on this ridiculous, soul-shaking night, they all gave us something to remember. This game wasn't perfect. It was human. And that's why it was unforgettable. This has been Across the Pitch. Over and out.